Thank you. And thanks to my fellow Portuguese for pronouncing my name correctly for the first time in a conference. So as you heard, my name is Pedro Gomes. I'm the founder and director of the WalletConnect Foundation, and I'm really thrilled to be talking to you more about the future of wallets, how we're going to change the experience for users, and most importantly, how we're going to have smart accounts use smart sessions, and why do they even need smart sessions? Obviously, I don't expect people to know what smart accounts are or what smart sessions are. And I feel like we need to kind of go on a journey why wallets work in the way they are. So let's start with breaking down the lingo. Like when you think about wallets, you might think about the leather wallets in your pockets, or you might think about the digital wallet in your phone, and you might even think about MetaMask, Rainbow, Ethereum, Trust Wallet, all of these blockchain wallets. But what makes them so different as a blockchain wallet? It really comes down to this experience of before we used to log in into applications and now we connect. But it's not just the change of the word itself, it really changes the infrastructure and the technology behind it that completely revolutionized what is going to be the future of the internet and all of these applications. So you see all of these terms throwing around like dapps and wallets and smart sessions, but it all comes down to authentication. Like authentication means it's the process of proving who you are and what you own. And in a short word, when your user sees authentication, it just means that you want to get in. Like, let me in, I want to get into the application, I don't really care. And if you don't really care, you really want to make sure that you do as less clicks as possible. Like, less clicks is more. This is our mission for building a better user experience. A wallet is better the less you have to click around. But a wallet is also a little bit more insecure if you don't approve everything, and that's where the tricky part of balancing convenience and security. So why is Web3 different? Like we talked that there are physical leather wallets, there are digital wallets in your phones. Why are Web3 wallets or blockchain wallets any different? I like to always bring probably one of my oldest diagrams. I've been presenting this diagram for more than 5 years. And this kind of explains very simply how the infrastructure had changed from Web 2 to Web 3. Before we had a server that was powering your application. But these servers inside have this module that's called Authentication. Some people even call it identity, but this is basically what your login looks like. Your login lives in the server. And blockchain obviously does not have a server, and you can't just put login in there. So it was cleverly designed that we put the wallet on the user side. So as you can see, the wallet sits on the bottom, no longer in the blockchain. And that means that now the wallet is your authentication, which is separate from the app. But it has also created the inconvenience of now, every time you use an app, you need a second app, which, you know, it does have its advantages, but it also adds more clicks, which is against our mission here. So when you think about the wallet, it kind of comes down to like credentials, signing an account, and I kind of try to break down here what it looks for different wallets. It really doesn't matter. Like if you have a mobile wallet, a browser wallet, a hardware device, or even if you use a cloud or MPC, like they all come down to like something you know, something that you are, and something that you have. And it basically breaks down into credentials, signing in accounts. And you can see here that one thing that you all have in common is this concept of an external account, which is going to be important for you to remember that no matter what wallet you have, they all have an external account. But before we get into that, I did say that connecting is this new verb that we moved away from the login, but we did try to recreate login with blockchain, and basically didn't work really well until someone came with a standard, which is called Sign In with Ethereum. And Sign In with Ethereum actually is just this. It's a text message. It's actually very simple. Like when you think about it, it just says, this website wants to access your account. And then we added some parameters that says, like, you can access this chain for this amount of period, and so on and so forth. And even throw in some terms and conditions to make it look very familiar. But this is actually more familiar because if you do Google login, it's the same thing. But we're so early into blockchain, that we don't have this beautiful UI on the right, we have a text message. So wallets are slowly adopting signing with Ethereum to not just be a text message and to actually be like a concise and compact display that allows you to connect. And eventually you might even have this, like you actually have a signing with Ethereum. Here I just modified literally the Google one and I put like some Ethereum stuff. But in concept, it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing that signing with Ethereum tries to achieve, with the difference that you still have to connect to then sign, which doesn't feel very great. Like, it's like a two-step to do something that was before a one-step. So I'm part of this community called the Chain Agnostic Improvement Proposals. And we proposed this wallet authenticate, which basically tries to bring back the login experience. And basically that meant that what if we just don't connect anymore? We just like go straight to the signature. So if you could just do sign with Ethereum, like you could actually get this like Google login experience with your wallet, and it would be even more secure because when you're signing your wallet and connecting at the same time, you're actually verifying ownership of your wallet. So this was actually pretty cool, and this got us like, you know, like less clicks is more, but is that enough? Like, because at the end of the day, most wallets are used for transaction purposes, and logging in is just one part of it. So yes, we reduced connect and sign into a single step, but after you log in or you connect with your wallet, you still need to perform some transactions. And this looks as, you know, switching to the wallet and everything, approving transactions. And when you think about signing transactions, there's a lot of nuance here. Like, the beautiful thing about Ethereum is that it's a smart contract blockchain, which means you can do everything. The disadvantage of being able to do everything is that these transactions can be incredibly complex, and understanding what these transactions look like can be a little daunting, and at the end of the day, people just like close their eyes and they just like approve. You know, let's be honest with ourselves. Like, if it's not transferring a token, most people are not actually looking into this, and the reason for that is because there's applications out there that we don't know about it. So, but we also don't want to scare people away. And this kind of balancing convenience and security is kind of hard, right? That's kind of like the magic of building a great wallet, where you have to allow people to explore every application that exists and at the same time make sure they're secure. And I'm not saying that we haven't done a good job, but we still have to continue to focus on doing less clicks is more, and at the same time, we actually have to give people security. And I think this is where we go back to the definition of a wallet that I mentioned. It's credentials, signing, and an account. And all wallets today have external accounts. So that's why we then have the concept of smart accounts. Technically speaking, they're not called smart accounts. Neither are external accounts. They're called externally owned accounts, most commonly referred as EOAs. And then we have smart contract accounts, or SCSAs. But no, honestly, like when I have conversations with people, we just call it external account and smart account. Like, that's kind of like the easy way. So most wallets today, like 95 or 99% of the time, are external accounts. And we're in this process of making the experience better by turning them into smart accounts, which means that they're going to be more programmable. But it also means that, like, you now have to deploy a smart contract. So if you have to deploy a smart contract, you're no longer thinking of your wallet as just one key that is managed by your secret recovery phrase. You actually have a smart contract, and that is like the account that your wallet manages. But if you don't have a key, you don't have a signature. So how am I actually going to sign? Like, the whole purpose of this was to sign. So what is actually controlling your smart account? So there was a standard that was created, which is how can we actually validate ownership over contracts? Because while with signing with Ethereum, it was very simple. You sign this text message, and now I can just verify that the signature matches your address. But with a smart contract, I don't really know how to validate it. So ERC 1271 created like a very simple interface that says, is valid signature. Like, you know, sometimes people think like this code things are very complicated, but this is literally the whole spec. Like, it's like very long to read, but then it's is valid signature is the whole code. And this basically takes a signature and throws a true or false. So it's a binary that says, yes, it is a valid signature. So your smart contract is basically saying that this signature was done by someone who was authorized to control my account. So now we have to get a little on the nitty-gritty and actually break down what it means to have an account. So the same way a wallet is credentials signing an account then is defined by who is the signer, who is the payer, and what kind of cryptography is involved. In an external account, it's pretty straightforward. You have the same signer, you have the same payer, and you have the cryptography, which on Ethereum is SCACP256K1, and that's it. You don't have an option. This is what an external account is on Ethereum, and this is what your external account is going to do. With a smart account, actually, this is a little bit more flexible. Now we have a smart contract where we can encode logic that allows you to have more programmability. This programmability can be many things, but at the core of smart accounts, it means that you can have multiple signers. Multiple signers does not necessarily mean that it's a multisig. The reason I try to not call it a multisig, because there's a preconception about multisigs being multi-party. And that means, oh, you have multiple people signing for the smart account, therefore this is like a business account. No, it's not a business account. You would have multiple signatures by using your account in a mobile phone and a desktop. That in itself already provides you with a good reason why you need a smart account, because you don't want to move your keys around with different devices. Or you might even want to do something more complex where you have a secret recovery phrase that you own in a piece of paper for security, and then you have one in your device and one in the desktop, and you use two-factor authentication. So this idea of programmability makes for more security and convenience at the same time. So we really find the balance here with smart accounts. Another convenience feature is that we now detached ourselves from the signer always have to pay. And what does that mean? Everyone understands here that blockchains have fees, and these fees are called gas. And in order for you to pay for that gas, you have to be both the signature and the payer. But what if you could actually have another account pay, or maybe even you pay, but with a different token? With smart accounts, you can actually program that information. So smart accounts not only allows you to have flexibility of having multiple signers, but then it also means that you can have a different payer than the signer, and maybe even you don't pay, someone else pays. And finally, the cryptography. The actual cryptographic curves can be infinite. Well, infinite not so much, because the more contract logic that you add into your smart contract, the higher the gas cost, but you get the picture. It's way more flexible. And if it's more flexible, it means that we can actually get a little more creative. I don't know how much you know about cryptography, but 256K1, the curve of Ethereum, is actually not that popular. That's how we like to reinvent the wheel kind of thing. We kind of like to use things that nobody else uses, but all of your phones actually use other cryptographic curves. For example, one that's called P256, which most people now know today as the curve that's used for passkeys. So what if you could actually use passkeys to control your smart account? Now we're getting really convenient, because now I can have passkeys in different devices. They all control the same smart account, and I don't even need to pay for the gas. This is getting a little too good to be true. But at the end of the day, you could imagine that you would have multiple wallets, and you would interact with multiple apps, but they're all under the same blockchain. But what if you could just have one smart account everywhere? It just kind of covered everything that you would touch, because you have multiple devices with multiple signers, and you share the gas, and you can use passkeys if you want. It really would become this truly universal account, which smart accounts really enable that experience. And this is where the terminology account abstraction comes in. Account abstraction, in a way, it's like a mindset. It's a framework for you to think about how can we detach as much from the limitations of the blockchain such that my account can be more programmable, more convenient, and still secure. And this all started about 2 or 3 years ago with 4237, which basically its title says, account abstraction using alt mempool, which I don't think we really need to get into that. But in the diagram, what it means is that before, remember, we had the triangle of the app, wallet, and blockchain. Things are starting to get more complicated now, right? Because I told you, now we have multiple signers. So now the signer doesn't necessarily need to be in the wallet, so it's its own component. And you also are not a payer. So now in account abstraction, we introduced the concept of a paymaster. So the paymaster is now the payer. The signer is the one who actually does the transaction. And the wallet is, you know, the thing that you actually control. So now we have two extra components. We made the experience much better, but we also made everything more complex. And in the title, you saw that it said account abstraction using an alt mempool. That essentially means that there's a pool of transactions that are ready to go into the blockchain. And that's the reason it's called alternative, is because it has to go through a bundler. You can no longer send transactions directly to the blockchain. Anyway, this gets really complicated, but I promise you that we're working really hard and bringing standardization, and we're going to go through this journey of how smart sessions are going to fix that. So the first thing you might think is, like, how do you actually detect if a wallet supports smart accounts? Because your application now has to consider that your wallet doesn't work like most wallets. You don't have an external account. How do you actually provide that identification? There's this concept of wallet call APIs. It's a new standard of how we're actually going to start interfacing applications with wallets differently. And it basically composes into 4 new methods. The most important of these methods, I would say, is this one, the wallet send calls. And this basically changes how we actually think about the wallet sending transactions. We no longer think about telling the wallet, send me an Ethereum transaction. I'm telling you, I want to take these actions, and here's the multiple actions, and I want you to actually execute them. And you as a wallet, whether you're a smart account or not, you should just be able to do so. And this comes with this idea of the introduction of capabilities. And this is how you discover if a wallet actually can support smart accounts. So the wallet get capabilities actually allows you to detect that, oh, on this different chains, this wallet has the capability of paymaster or session keys. Like, you can add multiple features in there that allow your wallet to say to the application, you can actually behave in a more convenient way for your user if you use these features. So this is actually quite useful because now we notice that the triangle of the wallet, blockchain, and app broke down into multiple pieces, and the application now has the ability to detect. But one thing I did not tell you, and I did not show you the spec of the 4337, is that despite the spec being a very, very long and complicated spec, it's actually missing a lot of stuff. Like, it's not telling you how the wallet supports and which paymaster supports and what is the interface of paymasters. And we basically kind of just decided, you know, the community will figure out one day. And that was kind of okay at the beginning. Like, if you go back to 2022, 2023, people were building paymasters and sponsoring transactions for everyone. But this was also an opportunity for fragmentation, where everyone had their own paymaster and everyone did something a little different. So in 2024, we realized, guys, we need to stop this. We need to all agree to do paymasters in the same way. And we wrote the standard 7677, which created, this part is not really that interesting. I just kind of wanted to give you a picture how a few lines of code can make a big difference of how we can make this world a little bit better by not having paymasters capture value of locking users into their paymaster, and we can have all paymasters working the same way. It was a very small thing, but it made a big difference. Another thing that we didn't talk is about the actual smart contract design. You know, like I mentioned before, Ethereum allows you to do pretty much everything. Like, so what would change? Because in external accounts, every account worked the same. But with smart contracts, that kind of gives a little bit too much flexibility. And if every wallet works slightly different, then we're going to have to start having problems. We standardize how account abstraction framework works. We standardize how the paymaster works. But what about your actual smart contract? What can I do with your smart contract account? So this is where 7579 came in, and it provided a very minimal framework for how to create modules. And in these modules, you can essentially think that we can use the basic smart contract code that we all agree is the consensus of what a smart contract account is. And then we can all install modules. So you can think of these almost as plugins for your account, adding new functionality and becoming this more vibrant ecosystem where everyone adds new features. These features could be, for example, recovery. You want to do recovery in interesting ways, where you include your family and friends, or you can include a third party. It could also be features proving different credentials in your modules. It could be some features around how you define policies of how you actually manage your account under certain conditions. And for me personally, the one that I got a little bit more curious about was, if I can control how my account is used under some policies, I'm essentially giving the ability for the smart contract account to manage itself. Because I say, I don't want you to be able to spend this amount of tokens within this window of time. And if I can do that, I'm starting to think, what if we actually had the app actually sign the actual operations on my behalf? Then if that's going to be the case, then we're going to start thinking, wait, if the app signs on my behalf, I no longer have to return to my wallet to approve every transaction. And this would actually create the best picture, because now I've told you at the beginning that we were able to create sign with Ethereum in a single click by removing the connect. But now I'm telling you that the app itself would be able to sign on my behalf because I have a smart contract account. And this is essentially what would be the end goal, where you log in once and then you actually have the app do all of the work. But it gets a little complicated because, as I told you, the app doesn't really have this concept of how to actually create the transactions for your smart contract account, because you might have installed certain modules, and those modules have to actually operate very differently. So we're currently working, and the reason it says XXX, because it's really work in progress, this new API that actually allows you to delegate to the application to prepare the calls and actually generate the signatures independently. So we come almost to the end, where now we have smart sessions. So you now have a smart account. You've been able to log in a single click. You have a paymaster that subsidizes your gas. And now the application, using the previous standard or wallet prepare calls, has the ability of signing signatures on your behalf. Because using this API, they know exactly how to operate independently. We basically reduce less clicks is more. Now, the only thing we need to tell to this application is, what can you do with this smart session? And this is where the final standard comes in, which is grant permissions from wallets. So the application is able to request permissions, the user approves those permissions, and those permissions can be encoded, as we saw with the Google login, as part of the sign with Ethereum. And then once you return that context to the application can send it directly to the bundler. So now we don't even need to have the wallet in the loop, and the application is able to use the smart session to operate your wallet, because you basically said you can only do this much for this amount of time with this amount of tokens, and you basically created the rules for the bundler to understand that this app can sign on your behalf with a smart account. But there's some concerns about, if the app actually has control of a signer that controls your wallet, it can cause some problems. I don't know how much you guys know about web security, but browsers are not very secure. So this is where I also wanted to bring back the concept of passkeys, because now your app can generate a passkey for your smart account and control it under the certain permissions that you give. And this then looks like, these passkeys, and then your wallet essentially becomes a passkey for that specific app under certain permissions. So the only thing that we need to do now is actually upgrade the EVM, because one thing that the EVM has a problem is actually with computing different cryptographic curves. So if we add the actual curve for passkeys into the blockchain, then we actually would have an even cheaper gas for everyone. However, this is actually something that's been in progress with some rollups, but not necessarily for the Ethereum mainnet. So you might think that I'm from WalletConnect. If the app does everything for the wallet, what is actually being connected? Realistically, you've essentially logged in into your app, and you've passed on the wallet inside your app. It's almost like you have the concept of a mini wallet. So we basically have almost like what we had in Web 2, but now the authentication lives on the app under certain conditions. So you might be thinking, are we done? Is this the end game? We fixed everything? Not really, because one thing that I didn't explain is that this only works in the same blockchain. And we currently have, I forgot the number, like 500 rollups or something. Like, it gets really complicated. So what if smart sessions could actually function across all chains? So I'm going to bring some new lingo into the table, and we're going to talk about chain abstraction. I'm joking. We're not going to talk about chain abstraction, but this is the next game, right? We basically have wallets moving to smart accounts. We now, as part of WalletConnect, we have the ability to introduce smart sessions to make the user experience better. And chain abstraction is the next game, where bringing interoperable tokens, magic spend, 7702, and like bridges and solvers and bundlers, we can really have the chain abstraction improve the experience. And then you might think, what is the future of wallets? Like, before, you just had like apps and wallets talking through WalletConnect, and now you have like sessions and signers and paymaster. Most importantly, we want to work on redefining what is the wallet experience for Web3 and making it as convenient and secure as possible. But most importantly, we want to make sure that less clicks is more, and people have the time to really enjoy the benefits of these applications. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pedro. We already have a couple of questions here. Not sure if we'll be able to cover all of them, but let's gonna start with the most voted here. Pedro, is it already possible to use the same account abstraction across all layer 2s? If not, when do you think it will be possible?
So it is possible to some extent, but as you saw, smart accounts are deployed contracts, so you actually have to deploy the contract in every L2 that exists. So if you have to deploy the smart contract in every L2 that exists, that means that you have to manage multiple accounts, and it gets really, really inconvenient. People are working on how you can manage accounts across multiple chains, and I think chain abstraction is the next level. I think of chain abstraction as almost like cross-chain smart accounts. So eventually, very soon.
Another question here. You wouldn't giving a session to the dApp make scammer dApps' lives so much easier?
Well, obviously, that's a topic for discussion. Like, smart sessions is about 9 months old. We have done some experimentation. How much permission should you have to give to the app that it's convenient for you, but it still makes you secure? Like, the current designs currently focus on spending policies, and that has been most of the conversation. But in my opinion, it should not make it easier, because you can actually have more control, because of smart accounts give you programmability.
Is smart sessions a smart account?
So if smart sessions are smart contract is another topic of discussion. If you go to the spec of 7715, there's 2 versions. There's one that's called session key smart sessions, and there's one that's called session account smart sessions. So there's a little bit of a difference of how people think about it. But yes, I guess you could say the easy answer is yes.
And then one last question. Do you think of sessions as long-lasting or short-lived?
Look, when you think about login, login actually is, on average, people log in into a website, and those sessions are 7 days. But what Web2 has successfully done is that they can renew those sessions. So essentially, at every 7 days, you have the ability to renew the smart session. So we don't have this capability of automatically renewing smart sessions today, but that's how I envision us kind of inheriting that design from Web2, where smart sessions would be 1 week old, and then you would just renew it automatically without you having to log in every time.
Pedro, thank you so much. That was a great presentation. Thank you so much, everyone,
everyone.
for adding so many questions.